Thanks, Ronnie. It's an honor and privilege for me to accept the nomination as president of the Jewish Federation of Metropolitan Detroit. First, let me wish everybody a healthy, happy, and peaceful New Year. Shana Tova. And I, too, want to personally congratulate Ed Levy on his receipt of the Butzel Award. Ed's a wonderful guy, a great community leader, and so deserving of our community's highest award. So anyway, I was told we have this annotated agenda, and I was told that I have 3 minutes to speak tonight. Imagine, I've just committed to spending the next 3 years of my life going to endless meetings, getting thousands of emails, having hundreds of conversations with all of you on how to do this job and make everybody happy, and for that I get 3 minutes. Do you really think I'm going to behave and do what I'm told? Not a chance. So first and most importantly, let me again thank Nancy Grossfeld for the commitment and passion she's given to our federation and our community for the past 3 years. Not only have Nancy and her husband Jim been extraordinarily gracious exemplars of Jewish philanthropy, but the enormous amount of time, focus, energy, and personal caring that Nancy has devoted to our federation as a leader and as a mentor to all, in and of itself deserves special recognition. Thank you, Nancy. And thank you for the time you gave me this past year as president-elect to bring me up to speed and include me in the decision-making process. And while Jimmy thinks he's free to travel the world now, I assure you that Nancy will be, and I know she would want to be, a continued resource and asset to our Federation community. So we'll give it back to you a little bit, Jimmy. Let me also tell you how much I'm looking forward to working with Doug in the years to come. As he said, we go back a long time as friends and associates and started our Federation leadership experience many years ago together. In fact, on one mission to Israel, Doug and I were roommates, separate beds. And while I can't say that I'm anxious to do that again, I'm certainly looking forward to sharing the responsibility of making our Jewish community excel with Doug as my partner. And I look forward to working with Scott, Andrew, Howard, and Dorothy, who, with all of the Federation staff, devote far more than should be expected as part of their job responsibilities, and who have stepped up to meet the significant new demands of recent years with much less resources than previously available. I know that I too will be able to count on them. To all of our officers, board members, committee members, donors, agency staff, and our friends, allow me to say thank you, for it is only because of your commitment and your contributions of time and money that we continue to be the greatest, strongest Jewish community in the world, even in these stressful economic times. I was going to thank all of those people who reached out to engage me in the work of Federation, who mentored me, who inspired me, who educated me, and who instilled in me the passion for the work we do. But since I was extremely fortunate to have so many of those people in my life, I was afraid I'd use up my 3 minutes, and I'd forget to mention too many names. So instead, as a thank you to all of them, I'd like all of you to pay it forward and reach out to someone else, invite them in the door, and make them as proud as I am of the incredible work we do and the thousands and thousands of Jewish lives we impact and we nurture. And I need to acknowledge my family. At his bar mitzvah, my son Adam noted that most parents sit on couches, but not my parents, he said. They sit on boards. I'm fortunate that my son Adam, now a graduate student in California, could be with me tonight, as well as my daughter Susan, an early childhood education teacher at the Ann Arbor JCC. My son Jeffrey, finishing his senior year at college in Atlanta, and my oldest daughter Rachel and her husband Ben, both medical professionals in Philadelphia, were all with us for Rosh Hashanah, but unfortunately had to get back to work and school and could not be here this evening. And finally, a special thank you, hug, kiss, and expression of love to my wife Barbara. As Adam said, his parents, both of them, sat on boards. And while Barbara is currently serving as campaign chair for the Women's Department of Federation, She spent much of our married life involved in so many communal activities and roles, and we were so fortunate to share the beliefs and values that helped shape our lives together. The Jewish community, Jewish identity, concern for our youth, caring for our elderly, and a passion for Israel as the heart of the Jewish people forms so much of our identity. And hopefully, by expressing those passions to our children, and our children's children will be meaningful participants in doing their part to assure the continuation of a strong Jewish people far into the future. I have tremendous respect for what Barbara does and her passion for all that she's involved with. So I'd like to tell you a story about a tree. It was a beautiful spring day in 1996. I was standing on the site of one of the former crematoriums at the concentration camp at Theresienstadt. Some of you were with me. We conducted a memorial service at the site. Zachor, we remembered. We stood next to a tree that had originally been planted in the spring of 1943 on Tu B'Shvat, the holiday of trees, by a group of young children and their teacher in the courtyard of their barracks where they were held by their Nazi predators. Though given meager daily rations, the teacher had asked each child to share a small portion of their daily water to help the tree grow and to help the tree flourish. In 1945, after the liberation of Theresian, the surviving children transplanted the tree to the site we were standing, the site where so many of their friends and others had perished, had been cremated. Next to the tree, they scribbled a sign. The sign read, "As the branches of this tree, so the branches of our people." And I began to understand. 50 years later, the branches of that tree were protecting us with shade. The trunk was strong and the roots were deep. The roots. They were the connection to those children and the connection to our long, rich, and painful history. And while they were the connection to all those who perished, they were also the connection to those young children in the camp who had the foresight to plant that tree, share their precious water, as they saw even then hope for the future. They planted that tree so that all of us who visited 50 years later, 100 years later, or beyond would have an understanding of our responsibility to a rich but challenged past and to the potential of the future. Our community is like that tree. As a people, we have a very deep and very long roots that provide us nourishment if only we give them some water. As a community, we have a multitude of beautiful and incredible branches. Some of those branches are our temples and synagogues. Some of them address the needs of our elderly. Many address the needs of our most vulnerable and provide health care, housing assistance, job placement, and numerous other social services. Some branches help to educate our children, and others to give our children a Jewish camping experience or affiliation with a Jewish youth group in high school or in college. And we have a very strong and special branch that reaches very far to connect us to the land of Israel, its people, and to all the Jewish people throughout the world. For we understand that Israel is the heart of who we are as a people, and that we are strong when we are one, strong when we are connected. But the mighty trunk that holds up those branches and the trunk that connects us as a community to those deep roots is our federation. Because no other single institution or agency has as its mandate the obligation to address the needs of, connect to, be a safety net for, and assure the future of the entire Jewish people, wherever there is a need. And while we can't meet all of those obligations all of the time, we always take seriously our mission to try. Federation provides funding and resources to its 19 constituent agencies and 20 synagogues and temples, as well as supporting the work of its primary overseas partners, the Jewish Agency for Israel and the American Joint Distribution Committee. Federation is the organization that always finds a way to provide emergency funding, whether that funding is needed to support Israel in time of need, the elderly in the FSU still struggling to get adequate daily food and medicine, or more recently to address the emergency needs of so many in our own city, devastated by harsh economic realities, which are causing increases in lost jobs, lost health care, pending home foreclosures, or the severe psychological impact these events are having on so many. Without the strength of a strong and united Jewish community, those beautiful branches will eventually have nothing to hold them up and will lose their connection to the roots that provided them nourishment. But our community tree needs that precious water. For those of you who can, turn on the sprinkler. And for those who are finding times more challenging now than in the past, like those children at Teresian, please do the best you can to help provide for those with no water, and so that our community will have a strong and bright future. When receiving congratulations from some of my friends on my pending Federation presidency, I was counseled to beware of my negative, pessimistic attitude. Remember, I said my friends. And while I do have a tendency to be a glass half empty kind of a guy, today I'm optimistic. We could obsess on all the young people leaving Detroit, but I'd rather sing the praises of all of our young people who are here, who are involved, who care about the future of our Detroit and Jewish community, and who are getting together to figure out what is needed to keep their friends from leaving in the future and to bring their other friends back home. And while we've lost a substantial number of contributors to our campaign due to death, moving out of town, or the significant impact to so many of our donors due to the poor economy, I'm optimistic in that we continually engage new donors, educate others who can to do more, and realize that even though we have thousands fully involved, there are thousands more just waiting for one of us to reach out to them to ask them to be part of this extraordinary endeavor. We may become a smaller Jewish community in the future, but that can't stop us from making Detroit a better Jewish community. Detroit is the greatest Jewish community in the world, and Federation will always understand its obligation to the past, its responsibility to the present, and mission to build a bright Jewish future. When I stood by that tree at Theresienstadt, I asked myself, how could I fulfill my responsibilities to my children and to my community? I wondered, how could I give my children and all of our children the strength and resources to fulfill their responsibilities? And now, almost 15 years later, I still don't have that single answer. But I pledged to myself then, and now I pledge to you, I'll never stop trying. Please try with me.